So you want to know what's what in the world of flares? Well, you've clicked on the right video. And FYI, we're not talking about trousers from about 50 years ago. Today, we're talking about plug flares, so that you can tell the difference between a screwback and a zero flare plug. Let's start with the basics. What even is a flare? Well, it's the part that sticks out a bit further than your lobe, meaning that you can do some skateboard tricks or even throw down in the pit and know that your plugs are going to be safe and secure in your ears. With that basic crash course out of the way, let's talk about flare types. The most common flare that people use on their plugs is double flare, which should look something like this. It's got a flare at the front and at the back as well. The main benefit that double flares have is that everything is in one place and they're not finicky to put in your ears. Simply angle the plug and slip your lobe over the first flare and it should sit comfortably in your ear. Job's done. No need to find an O-ring or a screwback. As long as you've got your plug, you can wear it. Next up is single flare. We've lost a flare, which is usually on the back of the plug, and in its place, we've got an O-ring. This is kind of like a tiny rubber ring that stops the plug falling out of the front of your ear. You may be asking yourself, or your phone screen, why are single flares even good? Well, if you're stretching up, or you've got sensitive lobes that don't play nice with flares, single flares are great because you don't have to stretch your lobe over a flare to get them on, which means less stress on your ears. Simply take the O-ring off the back of the plug, put the plug in your ear, and then put the O-ring back on the plug, and you're good to go. What could possibly be next? We've had double flare, we've had single flare, so why don't we have zero flare plugs? These are a lot less common than the previous two types, but just like single flares, they're great for people who are currently stretching. Zero flare plugs have, that's right, you guessed it, zero flares, which means that your ear will be sandwiched between two O-rings, allowing you to miss out on flares altogether. This is a super quick intermission to say you should subscribe to the Custom Plugs YouTube channel if you haven't already. Never miss an educational video and continue your stretching journey with help from me. Alright, back to the informative part of the video. What's that? You're missing flares? Well, we'll bring one back and we'll talk about screwbacks. A screwback plug has a permanent flare at the front, is usually made out of metal or acrylic, and as the name implies, the back screws on. Because the back screws off, they're as easy on your lobes as a single flare is, and because the back screws on, they're even more secure than a double flare. It's like Hannah Montana once said, I'm not actually singing it. You get the best of both worlds. Sometimes it does take a bit of practice getting the screwback back on, but I'm sure you'll be fine. The last flare type that we're going to talk about today is the Mayan Flare. This is the perfect flare type for people who love flares. We've got a regular size flare on the back and an absolutely massive one on the front. No, not that big. Yeah, something like that. Mayan flares are more of a stylistic choice than anything else, as they're functionally the same as a double flare. They just make your stretch look a few millimeters larger at the front. I'd also only advise putting the Mayan flares in with the smaller flare, because you're going to have a bad time if you try and stretch it over the big flare. I hope this video has helped you with your understanding of flares and plugs. If you've liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if not, let me know why there weren't enough flares in the video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.